I'm particularly pleased to bring up my good buddy Lon Safko.
Wow, yeah, thanks. So good morning and welcome. Holy crud, man, that's a lot of stuff. It's all about innovative thinking. I'm always afraid when people ask me what do I want to do for a living, and I say I teach people how to be innovative thinkers. I teach people how to be creative, because they're really not quite sure what innovative thinking means. But what I found is that innovative thinking truly and honestly adds to your bottom line. It adds to the culture of your company. So this morning what I want to do is I want to actually teach you how to be better thinkers, more creative. And as Steve has shown you, I've done a lot of that in my career. Let's jump right into it here. Again, that's some of the stuff that I've done. The reason that it's in my intro, yeah, please don't try to read it. You'll get a third of the way through and your eyes will start to bleed. But I put it up there because once you become an innovative thinker, you can't stop. It's just so much fun, and it becomes easy. It's like riding a bicycle and playing the piano. It just takes a little bit of practice. And the better you get at it, the faster it happens, and then eventually it gets to a point where it just happens all the time and it kind of makes you crazy. But that's what the cool part is breathing that innovation into your company. And this is some of the things that I've accomplished in my career. And then I got to a point where I was like, cool, now I want to teach other people how to do this. And that's what we're going to do here today. We're actually going to teach you how to be an innovative thinker. Now, what I want to talk about first is the distinction between inventor, entrepreneur, intrapreneur, because I know you've heard that definition, these definitions before, but I want you to understand what the real difference is. An inventor creates something new and exciting that's never been seen before. Did you know that Abraham Lincoln not only was an inventor, but he's the only president to receive a United States patent? Most people don't know that. That's because he was an inventor, but he wasn't an entrepreneur. He came up with an incredible idea. He actually saw it through, got his patent, but he never built a company around it or brought the product to market, and that's why you've never heard about it. So there's a huge distinction between an inventor and an entrepreneur. Entrepreneur is someone who builds a company or an organization around a really cool idea, but they don't have to come up with the idea. Steve Jobs, I had a chance during the late 80s, early 90s to work with Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs on the first computer to save a human life. And one of the things that I learned about working with Steve Jobs is he is the consummate entrepreneur. He can take ideas, most of the time other people's ideas, but he can bring them to market. He can rally an organization. Steve Jobs, right now, his personal worth is about $3.3 billion. Oh my gosh, now that's an entrepreneur. But you know what? He's never invented a thing a day in his life. Yeah, he surrounds himself with people who are inventors. He's the entrepreneur. Intrapreneur does exactly the same thing, but does it within your organization. And that's the goal of today, is for you to understand the value of innovative thinking and to foster that feeling within your organization to get your inventors, to get your entrepreneurs, your intrapreneurs to develop new ideas and actually bring them to market within your organization. I'm not just talking about R&D and the engineers and the geeks that you're forced to sit in the basement. No, I'm talking about everybody. I'm talking about administrative assistants. Some of the best ideas in some of the companies that I found came from administrative assistants. Sales. I mean, you need creativity in sales. You need it at the C-suite. You need it in the strategic planning. And an innovative company, an innovator, is someone that can do both. And that's something that I've been blessed with throughout my career. And that's what I want to share with you, is how you can come up with new ideas, be creative, invent new things, but more importantly, and here's the most important thing, because every one of us have come up with really good ideas, but what have you done with them? That's the tough part. As Thomas Edison said, that innovation really is 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. That's what the innovator knows how to do, is to get that 90% perspiration to actually make the world different, make it a better place with these new ideas. We're all creative, every one of us. Just think of how creative kids are. I mean, if anybody ever had a teenager that came in after midnight, you'll know exactly how creative a kid can be. There's reasons that we're not creative is because a lot of it is trained out of us. There's perceptual reasons, stereotyping, saturation, evolutionary image. There's cultural reasons. There's environmental reasons, emotional reasons, and then the most important is conditioning. Once you realize and you understand what the barriers to you being creative are, You can break down those barriers and you can practice and you can become more creative. For example, the last item there, coloring inside the lines. When my granddaughter was 6 years old, she came to Phoenix to spend a week with us a couple of summers ago. And of course, if you have granddaughters, you know that projects are very important, keeping them occupied. And we bought some coloring books, and the granddaughter says, "Hi, could I color a picture especially for you?" And I said, "Yeah, please." Now, my wife at this point starts rolling her eyes because she knows that I'm going to do something weird, because I am. And I said to my granddaughter, I said, "I want you to do this color for me, but I want you to color outside of the lines." Outside of the lines. And she looked at me, but she trusted me. And by this time, my wife, of course, is really rolling her eyes. She's afraid her head's going to catch fire or something. If I had a round room, I'd tell her to go in and sit in the corner and watch what happened. That's the kind of things I do. But I didn't know what the response was going to be. When she handed me back the picture, what she did was took the colors that were supposed to be in each of the shapes in the coloring book and really hard pressed around the outside black line. What happened is that when you hold the picture back, the contrast between the black and the bright color made it almost vibrant. It was the most beautiful coloring I've ever seen a 6-year-old kid ever accomplish, because I told her not to color within the lines. I specifically instructed her to color outside of the lines, and because she was only 6 years old, she didn't know the difference. That's what happens to us. We've been taught the difference. What is that? Tell me what you see. What else? What do you see? You see the bird, the bat, Batman symbol? And you see the question mark. Generally in an audience, we'll go about 50-50 on this. Somebody says it looks like one of those ninja star deals or a Batman thing. The reason that 50% of us are seeing, it's kind of like that gorilla thing that we saw earlier. The reason that we're seeing the Batman thing, or some of us are actually seeing the question mark, is because our entire lives, we've been trained to look for information that is written in black on a white background. Newspapers, magazines, even computer screens. So when we see this, we don't necessarily see the question mark because we've been trained not to. But if this is the solution that we're looking for, we've got to be aware that there's barriers that force us from actually finding where that solution is or even seeing it, because it's right there in front of us. We put restrictions on ourselves that stop us from seeing this information. Anybody see any black dots in between the squares? How many are there? See the black dots? Okay, you see the black dots. How many are there? Trick question. There actually are none. There are no black dots. But you see black dots, but there are no black dots. And the reason is that your eye gets sensitive to the white areas, the codes, the rods in your eye, and it takes about a millisecond or so for that chemical to come out of your synapse in your eye and then clear it so that the black disappears. The point of this particular slide is that, again, when you're looking for answers, when you're looking for solutions, sometimes it's not what you see, it's what you don't see. And sometimes you actually see things that really aren't there. How many legs does the elephant have? The answer is 2. Many. Yeah, too many. And I use this because if I just showed you the picture of the slide and simply went on to the next slide, you would say, oh, picture of an elephant, that's cool, he's lost his mind, whatever. Because we stereotype. As soon as we see the image of the elephant, our mind automatically says elephant, and it stops processing information. That's why we can't solve things, because stereotyping has forced us to look at something, identify it, and not look at it any further. That's what innovative thinking is to take it that next step. Is this possible? We've all seen that. Who's the famous artist that made this? MC Escher, not MC Hammer, MC Escher. Yeah. Yeah, and the reason that those things are so fascinating is because they look almost real, but you really got to study them to be sure that they're not real, that they're actually physically impossible. Again, innovative thinking and conditioning. Volunteer. I just need somebody to read the first couple of sentences of that. Would you please?
I cannot believe that I could actually understand what I was reading. The phenomenal power of the human mind, according to research at Campbell University. It doesn't matter what order the letters are written in. The only important thing is that the first and the last letters are in the first place. The rest can be totally missed, and you can still read if it wouldn't be a problem.
Okay, I'll take you off the hook. Excellent. That was great. That was really good. Look at this. Wait a minute. Haven't we been told that spelling and grammar is absolutely critical? Now, could we mess this thing up anymore? But you had absolutely no trouble reading it. It's because of the way the mind processes information. When you understand how your mind looks at and processes information, you become really quick at innovative thinking, at inventing. Okay, there's a couple of ways we can do it. We can do it the Thomas Edison way. Thomas Edison was very famous. He was very prolific. 1,198 patents to his name. That's pretty slick. You know what? But here's his famous quote. I haven't failed. I just found 10,000 ways not to create a light bulb. How many people have tried 10,000 ways to solve a problem and still not be able to solve it? Okay, so I'm not really in that school of thought. I'm more about the intellectual part of innovation. And I'm about inspiration. Inspiration is that moment. When I was asked in a newspaper article one time, somebody says, what does it feel like when you come up with this incredible new idea? And I told them, it's remembering the future. It's never happened, but I remember it. It's that same feeling that when you remember somebody's name or telephone number, that little inspiration. Well, the thing that's interesting about it is the word inspiration comes from Greek and Latin origins, in spiritu. In spiritu means inspirited. What the Greeks believed, Archimedes, when he yelled that moment of eureka, what they believed is that that very moment, that gift of inspiration came to you, that it was given to you by the gods. That God touched you. They inspirited you with that information. And that's where the word inspiration comes from, even to this day. So the trick is to get in the mindset of being inspirited, innovation. Now, Steve Gardner, wonderful guy, asked me in 2001, can you please put your entire world's work, your life's work, into a formula so that you can share it with lots of other people and we'll book you because you will make them rich. And I said, okay, yeah, not a problem. I've innovated my entire career. Let me give you a call about the middle of next week. 3 years later, I just did it instinctually. I never thought about whether there was a process. There actually is. And these are the 3 C's. If you want to learn more about this particular, you can just Google me. About 20 pages of Google stuff comes up on me. But what you're going to do is Google Lon Safko Financial Times Prentice Hall, and there's like a 9 or 10-page article that I just wrote for him on this. And it's collect, calculate, and communicate. Collect. Understand what the problem is that you're trying to solve. And I can't go into a lot of details because of our time restraints here, but the better you understand the problem, the easier it's going to be for you to solve it. The next step is to calculate. The better you get at this, the faster this is going to happen. It's going to happen on its own. When you can't make a big decision, and we've all been there, it just means that you don't have enough data yet. You don't have enough information to make that decision. Give it a little more time, collect a little more data, and you'll make that decision. And then communicate. Somebody had mentioned Maya Angelou this morning, and I love her. I think she's just off the charts incredible. And she said there was something that she did for her inspiration. It's called piddling time. Piddling time means allow yourself some quiet time so that your subconscious can communicate those answers back to you. I'm going to challenge everybody here. Please, I want you to, after we leave here today, when you drive back home, turn the radio in your car off. I want dead silence for at least 30 minutes. I promise you, you're not going to believe what's going to come into your head. All of the subconscious ideas that you've been storing up are finally going to have the opportunity to speak to your conscious. That's one of the tricks, the piddling time. Now, I'm going to give you a practical example, and I'm going to actually let you solve this. This is my most recent patent. I just started negotiations last Thursday for acquisition of $50 million for this patent. But here's the part that's going to make you crazy. You guys are going to come up with it on your own. I'm just going to ask you the questions. I was asked by the Port of San Diego to come in and take a look at their public image problem a couple of years ago. And they knew they had a public image problem because the citizens of San Diego were throwing eggs at the employees as they went to their cars. And there were 2 senators in Sacramento with a bill to dissolve the organization. Let me just give you a sidebar hint. If your company's employees are getting egged and there's 2 senators with laws being passed to dissolve your company, you got an image problem. So when I came in there, it was a government agency. I said, well, what kind of a staff do I have? None. Well, okay, well, cool. Well, how much of a budget do I have? Absolutely none. Has anybody ever tried to do the impossible with absolutely nothing? So faced with that, I knew that I had to work with the internet because the internet is always going to give you the greatest rate of return on investment for sales, marketing, public relations, and communications, hands down. So I started with the internet. That, by the way, is what I did to the internet in 90-day increments. Those are % of increase in traffic. So let's just say it was significant. When I looked at the server reports, I saw the strengths, government, military, Come on, it's San Diego. I mean, geez, 23 miles of shoreline was owned by the port, except for the Navy. So yeah, of course. Sometimes the problem isn't the answer, isn't in what you see, it's what's missing. If we're successful at marketing to those people, I want to subtract that from the overall demographic, and I want to find out who we're not successfully marketing to. In this case, it was kids, families, teachers. So I eventually took over Parks and Recreation. I became the director. I had the Beach Boys come do a free concert. I had Admiral Froman actually doing donuts with an aircraft carrier. That was cool. Nobody came out to see it because they weren't paying attention to us. So it's the kids and the families. One of the things that I learned working side by side with Apple, if you steal the kids, the parents will follow. Now, I mean that metaphorically, of course. And then here's a blank screen. We're going to fill in the blanks. Okay, so we know that we got to work with kids. Now, you guys are going to solve this $50 million patent right now. Kids, okay. What do kids like to do? Play, right? We all agree? Rocket science? No, kids like to play. Okay, what else we got? What do kids like to play with? Toys. Survey says toys. Still no rocket science, right? I'm literally doing this on a Wednesday morning at 10 o'clock on a dry erase board, so help me God. It's this easy. Okay, what was the only marketing medium that I had to work with? Internet. Okay, so survey says internet. So what do I got to do? Kids like to play with things that are tangible. Young kids especially don't have the mindset to do imaginary play for much more than about 20 minutes. They like toys, things that are tangible. Okay, so I know that. What is the only tangible thing attached to a computer that could create something tangible? Printer. Let's see, survey says printer. Okay, so what's the solution? I've got to create a toy that could be distributed over the internet, that could be printed out on the printer the kids are going to go ape over. That's what the dry erase board told me. Our first commercial application was with the United Airlines. I said, what if I can create a specialty advertising product similar to a t-shirt or coffee mug with your marketing message and logo on it, which can change every 15 minutes, which, by the way, you can't do with a t-shirt or a coffee mug. And it'll cross all demographics, men, women, children, rich, poor, whatever. And they're going to actually ask for it, and I'll do the distribution 24/7, and every time I give one of your customers one of your marketing specialty advertising products, you pay me a dime. They said, go ahead, you got our attention. And let me tell you, after the first 30 days, they called me up to renegotiate the deal. That's how successful it was. And then this is what I came up with. Paper models of famous locations, of companies' products, of company services. Three-dimensional advertising. We're in the process right now of tying this into Google Earth, Google AdWords, or Yahoo AdWords, so that when you click on something, that a three-dimensional representation of your product or your service is downloaded, or a famous landmark. You're studying the Alamo, click on it. It downloads 6 pieces of paper, fold it, build it up, and it turns into an architecturally true replica of that famous landmark. We're working with this, there's the United Airlines plane. We just did the Smithsonian Institution, and now we're starting to do all the things in their museum because the Smithsonian and I are tight now. Spirit of St. Louis, Apollo. We did the NBC news van. It's a little washed out here, and I apologize, but in the back of the room, make a mad dash for it. There's free paper models. Take some. Bring them home. If you got kids, if you have grandkids, if you hang out at schoolyards, that's the place to get them. General Motors, we did our 4th contract with General Motors. That's coming up. Ford, that's an actual centerpiece where we raised $5.3 million for the Children's Cancer Fund just by using these paper models. Three-dimensional advertising. Okay, so what does this all mean? What it means is that the innovation that you see here, you guys just did. It's really simple if you know what the rules are, just like anything else. Truly and honestly, you guys can be more innovative. But what we're talking about is bringing this innovation into your company, making your teams more innovative. Because more innovation means better products, better services, better competition. You'll beat your competition. It's just that simple. Plus, motivated, innovative people are exciting. Please email me, lonsafko@lonsafko.com. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so very much for your time today.